Taoiseach, last week I read into the record of the House elements of a transcript of a conversation between the confidential Garda recipient Oliver Connolly and a Garda whistleblower Maurice McCabe. And on the record I put elements of that conversation, such as how Minister Shatter, if he felt that the whistleblower was going to screw him, that he would be finished, that if complaints are exposed to the print media, it will make him an angry man, and so on. And I think they were quite shocking in terms of their import. The confidential recipient also, Taoiseach, speaks of his close proximity to Alan and how he communicated with him in relation to the allegations that the whistleblower put before him. Now, Taoiseach, since then I've listened to the audio tape of that conversation, and I can confirm its existence. And every single syllable that I articulated last week is there, and obviously more. And Taoiseach, I would put it to you that it does reveal the frustration of the whistleblower, and also the desire of the confidential recipient, that above all costs this must not get into the print media, and it must be kept out of the media. Now, I've subsequently met with the whistleblower Maurice McCabe, and I want to say to Taoiseach that he's a credible man, and he has some story to tell. But the Minister for Justice has essentially not allowed him to tell that story. And Taoiseach, I've met others, people who have been in authority, who equally believe in this man's credibility. Now, he did everything by the book the whole way, Taoiseach, as a whistleblower. He went to his line management, rebuffed. He went to the confidential recipient, got nowhere. He wrote repeatedly to you, Taoiseach, for over 12 months and gave you a dossier or to your office with all of these allegations backed up by evidence. He went to Justice and got no response of any consequence. He did go to the Department of Transport. Initially, they sent it to Justice. They went to the Road Safety Authority, and he got good response there. And I would say one thing, Taoiseach, speak to Minister Varadkar. He did stand his ground. And maybe people should listen to him more in the Cabinet than Minister Shatter. And the bottom line, Taoiseach, is this, that when the inquiry into the penalty point saga was initiated, it's extraordinary that Assistant Commissioner Manny and the inquiry team did not actually interview the man who made the original accusations, Maurice McCabe, at all. And incredibly then, Minister Shatter goes into the Dáil last October and says that the whistleblower did not cooperate with the inquiry. That was a blatant untruth that he put before this House. Now, the person who chaired the inquiry has since confirmed that he did not interview the whistleblower. The Road Safety Authority wrote to the Minister after the Cabinet had referred the O'Mahony report to it, highlighting that major failing in the O'Mahony investigation. Now, Minister Varadkar knows I'm telling the truth, because, as I said, he stood his ground. And the Road Safety Authority would equally confirm what I'm saying. But the Justice Minister, the Department of Justice, the Minister for Justice didn't. And a lot of negative innuendo was spread about this man, Taoiseach. And it was spread to people who went inquiring, to put them off the trail. What happened here, Taoiseach, is fundamentally wrong. And I would put it to you, Taoiseach, what Garda whistleblower now out there in their right mind would ever go near the system again, given the treatment that has been meted out to this man? It is absolutely scandalous, Taoiseach, what has occurred here. And it's not just about penalty points, Taoiseach. It's about other serious issues as well that would make the hair stand on your back, or whatever the phrase is. Shocking revelations of incompetence, which ultimately led to people being murdered as a result of a failure to act. Very serious stuff, Taoiseach, which Justice has and has had for quite a long time, but has not acted in relation to it. So, Taoiseach, what I want to ask you is this. Do you think the position of the confidential recipient is now tenable, following the existence of this transcript and the treatment of Mr McCabe? Will you insist that the Minister for Justice comes into this House, apologise to Maurice McCabe, and withdraw his remarks that he made on the floor of the House that he did not cooperate? That was wrong, Taoiseach. He should come in and correct the record of the House in the interest of fair play. And will you confirm to me, Taoiseach, that I know the Garda Inspectorate did do a report on the Omani investigation.
We're way over time.
And can you confirm that now with the Minister for Justice? And will that inspectorate report be published unvarnished? Thank you, Taoiseach.
Thank you. Taoiseach.
It's a very serious matter that was raised following the publication of elements of that transcript on a Sunday newspaper some 2 weeks ago. Following my response to that in the Dáil, I said that I'd start a report on the matter and would see that that report was followed through. I did receive a report from the Secretary-General of the Department of Justice, who over the past 2 weeks has made a number of contacts with the confidential recipient in regard to the veracity or otherwise of the transcripts published on the newspapers. There were a number of contacts, Deputy Martin, with the confidential recipient. This is a very serious matter. Following the publication of the full element of what is alleged to have happened, I didn't have the opportunity to listen to an audio tape myself personally, but having read all of the statements made, having been in contact with the Minister for Justice, who's very concerned about this, he has this morning relieved Mr. Connolly of his duties.
Thank you for your reply, Taoiseach. And I think that decision was an inevitable outcome of the conversation that took place between the confidential recipient and Mr. McCabe. And I take no pleasure in saying that in respect of the individual concerned. But that's not the end of the matter, Taoiseach, and not by a long shot. Because really it's Minister Shatter has to come into this House and answer serious questions about how he dealt with this whistleblower, Taoiseach. I mean, we're talking about the equivalent of the Neary case. If you remember the Neary case in relation to health, Taoiseach, it's the whistleblower sorted that out and revealed all of that. This is how Garda whistleblowers are being treated by the system. And the Minister stands over it and has stood over this the whole way along, Taoiseach. Yes. That's the problem. And when you wrote to him, Taoiseach, when Mr. McCabe gave you a dossier, and went on for 8 months and you sent it over, and he actually wrote to you saying, I wasn't interviewed by Assistant Commissioner O'Mahony, even though I've made all the allegations, I have not been interviewed. You wrote to Justice. Justice writes back to you. The Minister says to you, whether or not he's interviewed is an operational matter for the head of the inquiry team. An extraordinary reply. Yet he goes into the House, having made that letter, sent that letter to you, he goes into the House and then says that the Garda whistleblower did not cooperate with the inquiry. A blatant untruth, Taoiseach. That's the point. That's the critical point here. He needs to, in the interest of fair play, he needs actually to come in and correct the record if he has any sense of decency towards the individual concerned. And I know, Taoiseach, that Minister Varadkar met with Maurice McCabe, and he went on Morning Ireland and said, I believe this man to be credible, much to the anger of Minister Shatter. I know that too.
Sorry, we're not here to...
And what I'm trying to say, Taoiseach, is this. There is something rotten in the state of Denmark
would you put your question,
in relation to this particular issue, Taoiseach. It's now gone beyond most of the institutions that have dealt with this. And Taoiseach, when you talk to people about this, and I've talked to people now who know a lot about it in other institutions, do you know the first thing they'd say to me, Taoiseach? Do you mind if I meet you in your office? I'm afraid my phone could be bugged. That's what's out there in the ether, Taoiseach. You need to do something urgently about it, and I will communicate with you, Taoiseach. I will communicate with you, Taoiseach. I will communicate with you, Taoiseach, following your invitation yesterday. Material that I've now come into my possession in relation to more serious matters. But I sincerely hope, Taoiseach, that you will not leave it with the Department of Justice. And don't tell me that you're waiting for a report from Justice, because you'll be waiting and waiting and waiting. It must be taken out of Justice. It has to be, to get to the truth of this. And I say that to you, Taoiseach, in good faith.
Thank Deputy Martin for his comments. I invite Deputy Martin to hand me personally the information that he now has that's of national importance. I'd be very happy to receive that and act on it. I would point out to you, Deputy Martin, that in the House here I did say that I had requested a report from the Department of Justice. I did receive a report from the Secretary-General of the Department of Justice that outlines the number of contacts that the Department made with the confidential recipient about the veracity or otherwise of the allegations and comments printed in the national media. Obviously, following discussions arising from that report and with the Minister for Justice, following the publication of a more expansive version of a conversation that took place, as I said, the Minister has advised the official confidential recipient that if he has any knowledge of any illegal activities, that he should bring them to the attention of the Gardaí, and has this morning relieved him of his duty. I'd also say to you, Deputy Martin, that remember, I say to you, Deputy Martin, in all genuineness here, this system has been around for quite a number of years. Minister for Justice Alan Shatter has already said on public record on a number of occasions that he is not happy with the operation of a confidential recipient in this structure. I agree with you. Why would anybody who has an issue or a whistleblowing issue deliver that where there's no faith or trust in the system? And that's why the Minister has been very clear that he wants to bring changes to that legislation in here to be fully debated. I think this is a very important matter, Deputy Martin. Nor is it acceptable to the Minister that you have members of the Gardaí who are liaison between the GSOC and the Gardaí themselves. He's not happy about this. He's not happy about the confidential recipient situation, and he's bringing changes here. I said yesterday that the Oireachtas Committee on Justice is now being asked and mandated to review the Garda Síochána Act insofar as this is concerned, to make their recommendations, to take public hearings from people who have expressed views about the inefficiency or ineffectiveness of the Act, and the Minister for Justice will deal with all of this in these changes that are being brought here. But as I said here, having considered all this, having looked at the report of the contacts made by the Department of Justice with the confidential recipient, Minister Shatter has this morning formally relieved him of his duties.
Deputy MacDonald.
Taoiseach, when the two whistleblowers in relation to the penalty point scandal stepped forward into the public light, having been frustrated in their efforts to bring these matters to a conclusion within An Garda Síochána, Minister Shatter's instinct was to rubbish these two men. He did so publicly. He did, of course, allege that they refused to cooperate with internal Garda procedures. That was false and patently false. It was the same Minister Shatter and members of your government who tried to prevent the whistleblower Sergeant Maurice McCabe from appearing in front of the Public Accounts Committee. It is members of your backbenches and the government parties who up to this very minute seek to frustrate that same whistleblower receiving a transcript of the evidence that he gave to that committee. So let me say to you, Taoiseach, damage has been done to An Garda Síochána, to accountability and to whistleblowing within that organisation, and the chief author of that damage is none other than Minister Alan Shatter. And the mystery of it is that you stand by him regardless, all of you in Fine Gael and Labour. A fact, let me tell you, that causes much public bewilderment. And it is this same minister who you now charge with drawing up terms of reference for a review into what happened in GSOC, the bugging of the offices of those that police the police. Minister Shatter, as recently as last evening, came here before the Dáil to tell us all that there is no evidence of any surveillance on those offices. I suppose it harks back to his initial Dáil statements when he sought to bury this story, and yet you entrust him to draw up the terms of reference for this half-baked review. Who are you trying to fool, Taoiseach? That is so far wide of the mark and so clearly deficient as to be laughable. In fact, it would be comedy if the issues at hand were not so serious. So Mr. Shatter has relieved his friend and former political contributor, I understand, Mr. Connolly, of his duties.
No.
Very interesting.
Please stay away from these
Can I suggest, Taoiseach, that you relieve Minister Shatter of his duties? Can I suggest to you, Taoiseach, in relation to the most serious allegation, that of bugging of the GSOC offices, that you do the right thing at this point, that you use the legislation available to you, and that you establish as a matter of urgency a fully independent and functioning committee of investigation?
Thank you. Taoiseach.
Well, I dealt with this yesterday. The government made a decision here that it was appropriate that a High Court judge should look at the question of the chronology and the sequence of events that took place in all of this matter, which led to the public service investigation pertaining to safety concerns which were commenced by the Garda Síochána Ombudsman Commission. And the government also mandated the Minister for Justice, in conjunction with both of myself as Taoiseach, with the Taoiseach and the Attorney General, to work on the matter of the terms of reference. So it's not just a question of the Minister for Justice, who happens to be the Minister with responsibility here, of personally producing terms of reference for the High Court judge. These are as advised by the Attorney General. And the terms of reference will be published today. The Minister is going before the committee today. I expect that members may want to discuss this as well. And the opportunity, I expect, in the terms of reference will be to review and to assess the evidence, if any, of a security breach within the Garda Síochána Ombudsman's office, to establish any facts in relation to that. And indeed to make recommendations regarding measures that should be taken to improve the existing security arrangements at the GSOC offices, for the purposes indeed of addressing risks to the data and the communication systems that are there. So all of that will be public, discussed, and clearly the judge to be named will report back within 8 weeks. I'm sure that you accept that the involvement of a High Court judge here is completely objective, completely independent, completely unfettered access, both to the technological report produced by the British company and by the peer group report produced to the Minister in respect of the technology and the communications business involved there. All of that will be published in the sense of the report of the High Court judge and debated here. So in that sense, what we're at, Deputy MacDonald, is to ensure that you put in place a more effective system for the GSOC, so that those who want to make complaints to the GSOC can do so in the knowledge that their complaints are going to be heard and, if appropriate, acted upon, that's an effective system, much more so than what currently applies. And that's the reason why we involve both the Oireachtas Committee, members of the public who have an interest in this, all of those who are state servants in one sort or another, to involve themselves with the High Court judge, to review and analyse and comment and question all of the documentation, all of the reports, all of the statements, all of the technological reports on this, so that we have a system that works and that where the people can have credibility in the GSOC entity and in Garda Síochána. and the judge will report back inside 8 weeks.
Taoiseach, all of the evidence to date indicates very clearly that you have no interest in effective systems of oversight or governance. That's now, you've established that very plainly in public view. It's astonishing that you would allow yourselves, both Labour and Fine Gael, to be complicit in Alan Shatter's activities, which are aimed at undermining whistleblowers within An Garda Síochána, and which are aimed at burying any controversy that arises in respect of malpractice by An Garda Síochána. And in this particular instance, the most serious allegation of potential bugging of the oversight offices. So Alan Shatter is the lead minister in all of this, but you, Taoiseach, are his boss, and those that sit around the cabinet table are his colleagues. So you too are responsible for the actions that he undertakes.
Question, please.
And I cannot, for the life of me, and I believe that I speak for a great many people, understand why you have allowed Alan Shatter to bully, to ballyrag and to badmouth Garda whistleblowers. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why you will be complicit in his actions, which are clearly aimed at playing down,
your question, please. Thank you.
or setting aside, or even whitewashing things that occurred in respect of GSOC. That's how serious this is. And if you care about public confidence, if you genuinely care about that, Taoiseach, you have no option but to establish a fully independent inquiry with this High Court judge, which arms the High Court judge with all of the powers to call, to compel witnesses and papers, and to come to findings of fact. That is the single thing that will put this matter to rest.
Thank you.
I think you know that. I cannot understand why you haven't communicated that to Alan Shatter, but it's not too late. You still have your opportunity, and I ask you to take that opportunity and not to dig a hole deeper, not just for Alan Shatter, but for the Gardaí and for the oversight body, because that is effectively what you have done.
Thank you. Could I ask members, when they're addressing the House, if you'd apply the normal procedure of Minister X or Deputy Y, not Christian names as surnames. Thank you.
Thanks, Corley. Well,
the standing order
it's a bit ironic in a way, I suppose, to have the Deputy Leader of the Sinn Féin party talking about expertise in communications and surveillance. It's not the best I can do. And I reject your assertion, Deputy MacDonald, of not having any interest in this matter. I reject that assertion. And as you are well aware, the vast majority of personnel involved here are state servants. Is any of those people going to refuse to speak to a High Court judge about the facts, the chronology of events, the sequence of events, the comments, the reports and the statements made about it? Is any of them going to refuse to do that in the interests of safety and integrity and credibility? I don't think so, Deputy MacDonald. It's also a fact that somebody if I understand, if my recollection is correct here, that when the chairman of GSOC was speaking, he did say that I think it was 7 people had access to material that was sensitive and that somebody leaked that information. Now, obviously, I don't know who that was. It would be very interesting for people in a very sensitive position that if they're interested in security and integrity and credibility, that perhaps somebody might step forward and say, I made this available or whatever. In any event, Minister for Justice has said he is not happy with the structure of this legislation. He is not happy with the confidential recipient structure as currently exists. So you want a public inquiry. Of course, that's what you want. You always want public inquiries. You don't want anything to work. The government made a decision here. The government made a very clear decision, Deputy MacDonald, and that is to ask an eminent High Court judge to go through all of this and to report publicly within 8 weeks. And that report will be published and debated here. That report can be debated at the committees. The Committee of the Oireachtas dealing with justice is going to have its own reflections, and from the public in public session about the structure of the Act. So you have no faith. You have no faith in the High Court judge in being able to produce an objective, independent report on this. You have no faith in the legal system, Deputy MacDonald. You have no faith. All you want are endless commissions of inquiry. I heard some of the comments from some of your own speakers last night, and they make for a very interesting hearing indeed. So in this case, government have made a clear decision. A High Court judge take all of these, give that person all of the assistance they need, and report back within 8 weeks. And this is about having a structure that works, that has integrity and that has credibility, both for the GSOC and for the Garda Síochána. These are two fundamental aspects of our society. It's not working. Ministers already said that on public record, and we need everybody involved here to make that happen now.
Thank you.
So maybe for once, Deputy MacDonald, you might have a little bit of faith in the integrity and the objectivity of an independent High Court judge.